Welcome to the Church Fails podcast, where we bring our failures out into the open so we can laugh together and learn something along the way. In this episode, we're going to talk about when technical difficulties happen in the middle of worship, because we had that happen very recently. Good story. Anyway, for those who don't know me, my name's Kade. I'm the creator of Collaborate Worship and the lead pastor at No Limits Church.
My name's Dillon. I'm the creative director at Collaborate Worship and the worship leader at No Limits Church. Okay, so recently we had a pretty funny oopsie. It wasn't very funny to me, but it's probably going to be funny to listen to it. And it was in the middle of our worship set. And we didn't really handle it the best. But looking back, we now know that we could have done it better. We know what we could have done better. And so if it ever happens again, we know what to do. And so we're going to talk about that.
So this actually happened just 2 weeks ago, so it's pretty fresh on our memory.
No, it was last week.
Oh, it was last week.
It's Sunday today, and it was last Sunday.
All right. So it was last Sunday, and I'm out in the congregation in the front row. We're in the middle of the first song, and Dylan's trying to get my attention in the middle of the song. Like, he's up there singing. He's trying to get my attention. I'm like, what? And I don't read lips well, and so he's mouthing something to me, and I was like, I don't even know.
I think I snapped at you first because you were like dazed off. I was like...
Then he said something. I didn't know what he said, and I totally ignored him and just closed my eyes and kept worshiping.
And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah, what was going through your head? Right,
it's like, whatever.
Why is he not helping me?
It's like, hopefully the Holy Spirit will just work it out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and you were pointing off, like, to your right-hand side, I guess towards our keyboard player, but I looked over there and she seemed to be doing fine. So it's like, whatever.
Well, she was making a fuzzled look at me. So I was hoping if I just got you to look over there, you would see her doing it too. And I guess she stopped before you looked over there.
Yep. She got on her best behavior as soon as I looked over there. So yeah, that's in the middle of the song. The song ends and Dylan just kind of goes back to the keyboard player to fix whatever this issue is. And nobody says anything from the stage. Like, my wife was up there too singing. She just kind of turns around and has her back to the congregation. And we're all just kind of sitting out there. And, that's fine for a few seconds. And I think it was like 10 seconds in. And we're just all like, what are we doing next? Everybody in the room is just staring. A quiet room, completely quiet. Nothing's going on. It's just staring at what Dylan's doing with the keyboard player. And then finally, Dylan gets frustrated, I think, because he can't figure out what's going on. And he looks at me. He's like, "Hey, do you got any ideas?" I was like, "Well, I don't even know what the problem is. You got to tell me what the problem is." It's like, she can't hear herself. Like, her ears aren't working. I was like, "Oh." So I hop up there, and while I'm hopping up there, I walk past my wife, and I'm like, "Well, say something or pray or something, like address the congregation." And so she like gets in her mic. She's like, "Okay, told me to say something," and to make things more awkward. And so I'm like, "Oh my heavens!" And to make matters worse, I had a really hard morning that morning. Usually, I show up to church like just pumped, like for church. That day, I showed up to church. I'm thankful that church was happening, but I wasn't real excited to be there because we have 3 little kids: a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And normally my mother-in-law comes over and watches them for us on Sunday morning so we can go prepare for church. Well, I watched them this Sunday morning and brought them to church, 30 minutes before it started. And they ate my lunch that morning. Like, man, it was hard. They were not easy to get along with. They were very demanding and had a lot of needs. And so I showed up to church really wore out. And all my parents out there are probably like, "Yep, that's exactly how I feel every Sunday."
It's a good thing you don't have to speak that week.
Yep, true that. So I was already just kind of frustrated to begin with, and then that just kind of like elevated it, I guess. And then Beth said that, and that elevated my frustration even more. So there were not very good thoughts going through my head at this moment, so I was trying to calm myself down. But it turns out I just go and look at her P16. I was like, it's lighting up, so it should be working. And me and Dylan actually came to the conclusion at the same exact time, like her headphones must be unplugged. And like as soon as I like bend down to look for her headphone cable, Dylan comes back and like plugs it in for her. She's like, "Oh my gosh."
We'll call back to the last episode, communication problems, where she didn't know what was going on either. She didn't realize she had pulled it out. And we're not ragging on you at all, Amy. Like, this was a communication problem between all of us.
Yeah.
And she just didn't know how to communicate it to me because she was just so confuzzled in the moment. Like, who wouldn't be? And so she was telling me that she couldn't hear the backing tracks in the click. And so I was like, well, I don't know what the problem would be because it's coming in my P16. So like, did her P16 just fry that one channel or something? I don't know. And like, if she had communicated to me that she couldn't hear anything, then I probably would have gone to that first, that maybe something came unplugged.
That's true.
But she just didn't know how to communicate that, and I totally understand that. And I didn't communicate it back to her very well either. And maybe I just didn't, in the past, I've not communicated problem solving to her when it comes to the P16 very well either.
Yeah.
Call back to the last episode. If there's a communication problem, it's your problem as the leader.
Yep.
Like, you're the reason for it. And so I don't know how long it went on for, maybe like 30 seconds at least.
Yeah, which feels like an eternity when everybody else is in the room with you.
Yeah. And as soon as it had gotten to that point, I realized how I had failed in that moment. And it wasn't the fact that I'd gone back to the keyboard to help her try to fix it, because I'm really the only one that could have helped her out in that moment. But I didn't delegate the communication aspect to Beth like I should have, or to my sister, who has also had a microphone. I should have said something and then handed it over to Beth and then gone back there to help. But I was like so confused in the moment as well. I just didn't have anything to say either.
Yeah.
And so I learned, like, first instinct, address the congregation, give the communication over to someone else, and then try to fix the problem.
Yep.
And if you're wondering why this stopped the whole production, it's because it was a song where our keyboardist was the main instrument in the very beginning of it. And she didn't even know when the song started because she couldn't hear the backing track. And so the song started, she wasn't playing, and our drummer stopped the backing track, and then this all happened. So just in case you're wondering why.
Normally, stuff like that does not frustrate me. Like, I don't get mad about it, but I was kind of mad that day. Just, I think, because I showed up frustrated.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of pushed me over the edge. I wasn't mad that it happened. I was just mad that nobody was talking to the congregation from the stage.
Uh-huh.
It was like, what are y'all doing? Everybody's kind of had their back. And so, yeah. I mean, it's something as simple as, hey, guys, we're having a problem with our keyboard player's having a problem. I need to go address it real quick. So why don't you just turn your neighbor and talk to each other for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would have been a whole lot less awkward than not saying anything.
Yeah. In the moment, I was fully aware of the awkwardness. My attention was just so divided by that and then trying to fix the problem that I got so flustered as well. I wasn't really frustrated. I wasn't mad at our keyboardist at all. Like, I totally understand when stuff like that happens, but I was just flustered. Like, I don't know what to do. And what's crazy about it is that it ended up being like one of the best services we've had in a long time, despite all of that going on.
No doubt.
Like, the whole team was just so surrendered and humbled that Sunday that I think we just let the Holy Spirit do what he wanted to do. And he really moved that week.
Yep.
It was awesome.
It's like, yeah, all right, we failed in and of ourselves. So,
yeah,
God, do your thing.
I think we need that humbling every now and then, though. So it's probably good for us.
I'm going to get started unplugging her headphones.
We'll try someone else next time.
Yeah.
Do the drummer or something.
Yeah, it turned out really good. And to be honest, like, it took me, we always do about a 3-song set list. So we did the other 2 songs after all that went down. And it took me towards the end of the 3rd song to kind of get over myself and to not be mad over what just happened. Because, we had first time guests in the room. And so I'm thinking about them and how awkward that must have been for them and stuff like that. So, but still, I shouldn't have gotten mad about that. So that was my fail. Like, I didn't have my emotions under control. We get to the 3rd song, and man, it was just in the flow moment after the 3rd song. It was just so powerful. Like, everybody in the room, like, there's people crying, and like, it's just one of those moments you don't really understand what the Holy Spirit's doing. You just know He's doing something. Mm-hmm. And so I finally got over my frustration, got over my anger, and then He ended up speaking through me. Like, I never jump in a worship set. Like, that's something that I love for you guys to handle. Like, the worship team is more than capable of handling this whole set, and then you guys are going to transition it into the message, and I'll take it from there. But this moment, it's like the Holy Spirit was stirring in me, like, you need to say this, you need to sing this, and then Beth looks right at me because she knew that it was me. She's like, you got something to say, don't you? Because this is just when the band was playing and flowing. So I hopped up there and said some things that I really believe helped some people. Like, it was just a message in time for the season, and that's really, for me, that's an encouragement, because on a day when I was probably my worst as a pastor, like, I was frustrated and mad, like, God still moved in my heart to deliver something for His people. And at a day when the worship band made it seem at their worst because they had this big flub right in the middle of this set that's supposed to flow from endpoint to endpoint and never have any distractions, he used it like he still moved, like, and people told us afterwards, they're like, that was like the best worship that we've had in a long time.
It was incredible how in sync us people with the mics were. I mean, the band was too. Like, they were following all of us incredibly well. But then, like, when it comes to, I had a microphone, Beth had a microphone, my sister, and then Kade when he came up and spoke. But the worship moment after the third song was on Beth. Like, and whenever I give her or my sister that responsibility, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm like, do what the Holy Spirit's leading you to do. Don't ask me. And then there came a point where it was, I think the Holy Spirit was intending it to be passed on, and it was to me. And Beth thought, it's like she automatically knew, and she stepped back, and I automatically knew what I was supposed to do. And those are incredible moments when, like, you don't even have to think about it. It just kind of happens. Yeah. Like, you're just so surrendered that you just kind of start doing it without even really thinking about it. It's the only way I can explain it.
When the whole team is surrendered, like, together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then he had just something that he wanted for me to do, and I was just kind of singing some ad libs and encouraging the congregation a little bit. And then it came to a point that I didn't know what was next, but then Beth did, and she knew it was you. And I just knew to step back, and I opened my eyes, and then you were walking up on the stage and you had your encouragement. And it's like, I knew where my piece was, Beth knew where her piece was, and you knew where yours was. Mm-hmm. You knew when it was supposed to be, and we were just all so in sync with the Holy Spirit, and it was incredible. Yeah. Which is crazy after having such a flub like that.
Yeah. And, you know, one of our guests that we had, I talked to him afterwards, and he was like, so was there a problem, like, in the worship? Like, I didn't even notice. I thought, oh, that was on purpose. Like, and it was really good. I was like, there was like 30 minutes of awkward silence in the middle. 30 minutes. And so it's like he forgot that had even happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then even at the very end of the worship set, before we transition into the message, our keyboardist, she had a word of encouragement based off of her flub that she had.
Yeah.
And do you remember, like, kind of the specifics of what she said?
Well, I thought it was really good because our keyboard player, she's kind of a perfectionist, which I think a lot of keyboard players are. I think that's just kind of a common thing. But, like, she'll really beat herself up when she messes something up on the team. And she got up after worship had finished. It's like, hey, I got an encouragement. She shared, she's like, wow, you know, look at how God can still move despite our mistakes. She's like, I chose not to be upset over my mistake and keep worshiping anyway, and look at what God did, was kind of her message. Mm-hmm. And it's true.
It's a growing moment for her.
And I was really impressed, like, that she was able to move past her mistakes like that and let God move. It's awesome.
Super awesome.
Yep. So the resolution here is, like, make sure you should probably add a volunteer to your team that, like, just performs a little mischief here and there, like unplugs people's in-ears and stuff. So that you can get over yourself and let God move.
Cause some stumbles to humble yourself.
No, but obviously we could have made that better just by, like we said, just communicate with the congregation. But did you have anything else you wanted to add there?
Obviously, I said it already, but what I learned about problem solving with something like that is to call on another team member, delegate, because I can't do all those things on my own. I can't fix the problem and also be a leader on the microphone like that.
Yeah.
You got to delegate. Sometimes us worship leaders want to do it all on our own. Here, I'll fix this. Hey, just give us a second. You know?
Yeah.
So delegation.
Yep. Awesome. So if you've had one of your worship sets messed up really badly, now you know you're not alone. I've actually seen one of, like, Hillsong, and I think it was Taya on the keyboard, and her setting was on the wrong setting, and it, like, dropped this beat in the middle of, like, an intimate worship moment. You remember?
I've seen that video. It's a good one.
So even Hillsong does it. So be encouraged. God can still move even when you make these huge mistakes. Seriously.
Word.
Yeah. Word. If there's anything we'd like you to do after this podcast, it's to subscribe so that we can let you know when the next episode comes out, which we post these every week on Thursdays. Also, if you could leave a rating or review on wherever you're listening, that would be really helpful as well to help people discover it. If you have a worship leader friend or someone in ministry that you think could really benefit from these talks and us bringing our failures out into the open and laughing about them and learning stuff along the way, go ahead and shoot them the link over so that they can check out this podcast. But thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.